the Orion constellation and the Greenman of the UK, along with the Wildman, have a connection that date back to ancient times. The Orion constellation got its name from the Greek word for the hunter, and it's symbolic for the club that the hunter carries and is held prominently within the constellation of Orion. That connection also ties together the Greenman of the UK and the Wildman. They have a long connection through the coins that were minted during the 15th century, 16th century, very prominently throughout Europe and in England. They were, the Wildman was adorned on churches and other buildings at that time period also. And the Greenman was with pencil drawings in Germany that were done with the leaf, woven leaf hat that was worn, and the woven leaf waist covering that is also seen. These connections also stem to modern times, where in May of 2023, Prince Charles was coronated, and during his coronation, he had on his invitations a picture of the Greenman. And the Greenman then also is connected to King Charles' grandfather, King Edward. King Edward was coronated again on the same date of May 6th of the early 19th century. And during that time, he was married to Queen Alexandra, who was the Princess of Denmark. Denmark had on their coat of arms the Greenman, prominently flanked on both sides of their coat of arms. So when there was when the marriage and when King Edward became the King of England, he did pass that along in their coat of arms. The Queen Alexandra's iconography was translated then into and being a part of the monarch of England. So the Greenman, I believe, was a part of what King Charles was referencing to in his own family's coat of arms when he had that on his invitation. It was no coincidence that also King Charles picked May 6th, the same day as his grandfather, King Edward. That is during the period of Beltane, which is an ancient holiday of the pagan rituals. And this Beltane, which is associated with Baal or Baal and different pagan deities, is something that can also be traced to modern times in secret societies. So I thought that was fascinating. What I wanted to point out is also during a recent Live Science publication, the author, who was an anthropologist, had basically made a paper regarding the DNA evidence of Neanderthal and their introgressions, their ancient introgressions with Homo sapiens. The anthropologist that had written the article was using scientific evidence that the DNA, the ancient DNA from Neanderthal, had been primarily through Homo sapien female introgressions. So, primarily Homo sapien male introgressions, and that female Neanderthal and male Homo sapiens introgression were responsible for our modern anatomical modern humans DNA, and that ancient latent introgression that is a part of our DNA. The significance of this is that the anthropologist was saying there was sociological reasons for this, why the failure of male DNA the modern latent DNA that is found in Homo sapiens is linked all the way back to the introgressions between male Homo sapiens and female Neanderthal. It primarily resulted in this because of the ability of female Neanderthals to be able to have Homo sapien offspring. This differed from the introgressions that were taking place and the failed introgressions that took place between Neanderthal male and Homo sapien females. The Homo sapien females were not as robust as the Neanderthal females, and their birthing canals would not have been as wide and to facilitate a larger bone structure. And in those introgressions that took place, those mating that occurred between Neanderthal male and Homo sapien female, they resulted in high mortality rates. And I believe this is the reason why we had an extinction of the Neanderthal DNA, and we have only latent ancient DNA within it, because of the fact that the only ability of this DNA from Neanderthal was to be passed on through their female Neanderthal counterparts. Then the emergent homin theory that I had proposed would have absolutely been disastrous for Neanderthal and Denisovian. These introgressions, and when they would have been coming out, emerging from their regional areas, interacting with Homo sapiens, there would have been a failure on their ability to reproduce. And that's why we see here in modern times the introduction of Neanderthal DNA is only through female Neanderthals, and why today Homo sapiens are the dominant hominid in the globe. It wasn't because we were the most warring or the most intelligent of the early hominids. It was only because the larger male hominids, such as Neanderthal, when they abducted female Homo sapiens, the offspring were not viable because of the bone structure. Larger hominids, such as Neanderthal and Denisovian, would not have been able to have Homo sapien females bear their offspring. And over a period of time, that would have been disastrous for their genetic offspring to thrive. And it absolutely then feeds into the reality of the science today that has found that only the Homo sapien male and Neanderthal female were reproducing. So I thought that was very interesting. I think it ties into also when you look at the coat of arms of the royal family and the ancient name of the hunter through the Orion constellation, that there are connections through this emergent homin theory that I had proposed, and that these beings were most likely related to us in ancient latent DNA, but through centuries and thousands of years of just the Homo sapien DNA being viable, passed on generation to generation, we became the dominant beings. The Homo sapiens became the dominant beings of this planet. So I think that's very interesting. I also believe that when you look at the holiday of Beltane and how that ties into our modern times, there are connections that also parallel Homo sapiens and other hominids such as Neanderthal and Denisovian. The fact that we have those in the 16th century, 15th century, and they played prominently in the lexicon of the coins that were printed and the coat of arms. All of this still ties into our modern day. So interesting information. I wanted to share that, and there's more information on my website at the Knox Giga study regarding more detailed information. I go into to these two studies that I'm talking about. And I also have history of the European history that I have outlined some of the reasons why these beings were very much a part of historical figures and then sort of disappeared. But clearly the more DNA study we're doing, the more we're understanding that emergent hominid theory was accurate, that when they emerged from these regions, they were interacting and interbreeding, and the only successful interbreeding was occurring because of physiological differences between Neanderthal and Denisovian and Homo sapien. Neanderthal and Denisovian were not able to reproduce, and their failed introgressions with female Homo sapiens because of the ability of female Homo sapiens to give birth and their high mortality rate, that left the only dominant hominid on our planet then is Homo sapiens. So we tie this all back to the ancient hunter, Orion constellation, and carrying the club, as well as the Greenman, who carries a club, and the Wildman, who is known to carry this club. Very much connection through history and through the iconography that we see connected through royal families and bloodlines. So very interesting historical information and how we became dominant as Homo sapiens. This is Richard Soule, Hominologist in the land of the giants.